Good morning, sixth graders. We are moving on to chapter 8. Remember, we're not going to take a quiz over the volume. I just wanted to make sure you had that information in that practice so that way you can carry that through to your other classes that you'll take involving geometry. And if you see it on the NWA or MSTEP, you guys know what you're doing. Okay, so today we're talking about integers. Remember to pause the video as needed because I've already written everything down, and so it's going to go pretty quick. Today is a lot of information. It's not difficult information, but it's just a lot. So just be prepared to pause and take notes, and you probably will be taking notes for a good 20 minutes or so. All right, so the learning target for today is to understand the concepts of positive and negative in terms of integers. And we're going to get to what integers are in just a little bit. So again, pause as needed so you can copy what I've written down. Okay, so positive numbers to start with is any number greater than 0. So it's not 0, but anything greater than 0. So as soon as it's 0.11, we're talking about a positive number. And they can be written with or without a positive sign. So some examples would be positive 1, notice the positive is written there. 5, that's still positive even though the positive sign is not there. Positive 20, 10,000. So I have picked integers here. So those are whole numbers that are positive or negative, but anything that has a positive that's greater than 0 would be considered a positive number. So that would include decimals and fractions, but we're just focusing on integers for this section. All right, so negative numbers then are opposite of that. Anything less than 0, they are always written with a negative sign. So examples would be -1, -5, -20, -10,000. Negative 0.01, that would be a negative number as well. But again, for this section, we're focusing on integers, and I'm about to tell you what integers are and how they differ from regular numbers. Okay, so two numbers that are the same distance from 0 on a number line, but on opposite sides, are called opposites. And note that the opposite of 0 is just 0. Okay? Opposite of 0 is just 0. So that's a special kind of note there. All right, so again, positive numbers, anything greater than 0. Negative numbers, anything less than 0. Opposites are when you have one number on one side of the number line, same distance from 0 on the opposite side of 0, on the opposite side of the number line. Those two numbers would be called opposites. Now, integers are the set of all those whole numbers and their opposites. Okay? So -4, 4, -10, 10, -1,000, 1,000, -1,000,000, 1,000,000. All of those are integers. And what I happen to be listing are their opposites. Okay? So all of those are integers. So, for example, -0.1 and 0.1 are not integers. They are opposites, but they're not integers. So integers are the whole numbers and their opposites. Okay? And again, pause as needed so that way you can write things down. So if you just want to watch the whole video and then go back and write things down, that's fine. But remember, if I've written it down, I want you to write it down because not just listening, reading, and writing, right? All of those things together help us understand things at a deeper level. So make sure you're partaking in all those parts of note taking, not just watching and listening, but also writing. Okay, so moving on. So first example we're going to talk about is focusing on writing positive negative integers from key words. So often at this level, I assume that you guys have had enough life experiences that you can hone in on those words, but I realize some of you are only 11 or 12 and maybe you haven't had these experiences. So we're going to talk about them. Even though they may seem very obvious, we'll still talk about them. All right. So for example, a contestant gains 250 points on a game show. So what would the integer be for this situation? Well, it would be a positive 250, or we could just write 250, right? Because with or without the positive sign indicates it's positive. So that would be our answer. We have written the integer that represents the situation. Okay, let's look at example B. Gasoline freezes at 40 degrees below zero. Below zero indicates that that's a negative temperature. And then we haven't said Fahrenheit or Celsius, so I apologize that, but we're just going to put negative 40. Negative 40 represents the situation here, so that would be the answer, negative 40. So we use the keyword below to indicate that it's negative. Here it was gains, so that indicates it's a positive number. All right, so I want you guys to try it, and we are going to look at each of these. There's 5 of them. So a hiker climbs 900 feet up a mountain. Up. So what do you guess? If you guessed a positive 900, you are correct. Okay? Either way we write it, positive 900. Okay, you have a debt of $24. Debt. So hopefully you know that that's a negative 24. And I'm going to box in our answers here so we can see what our answers end up being. All right, what about number 3? A student loses 5 points because you didn't show your work, let's say. If you lose 5 points, you're down, you're negative 5 points. You've gotten 5 points off your paper. All right, number 4, a savings account earns $10. Earns. So that is a positive 10, or if we just write plain old 10. I'm going to box that in so you can see that's the answer. All right, and the last one, you deposit $50 into your checking account. A deposit. So hopefully you've been listening to your family members, your parents talking about deposits and withdrawals. So deposit, actually you're adding to your account. So that's a positive 50. So conversely, let's talk about this then. If I were to say, let's just add another example. If I withdraw $50, a withdraw is minus 50. Okay. So these are some keywords that should tell you, okay, that's a negative, that's a positive. I'm taking away, I'm adding to. Okay, so these are some keywords that you should be looking for, listening to in life that would indicate if you're getting something or you're losing something. All right, moving on. So in your practice, you're going to have to graph these integers. And so since the graphing is online, you don't actually have to draw the number lines, but I'm just going to give you a little practice here in your notes. So the task is to graph each integer and its opposite. So let's say we're told we are to graph 3 and its opposite. So let's make a number line. And again, Mrs. Bernal doesn't draw a very straight line, so sorry about that. But let's put 0 in the middle. Remember, positive numbers go to the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then negative numbers go to the left. Negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. There we go. Okay, so if I'm going to graph 3 on the number line, I put a dot, a filled in dot at 3. Its opposite would be the same distance away from 0, but just on the other side, right? And so hopefully you know right away without even having to count that it's negative 3. So you would graph negative 3. So we just graphed 3 and its opposite. And if you did count from 0, 1, 2, 3, it's 3 spaces here. Going the negative direction, 1, 2, 3, it's 3 spaces. So we have the same space, even if I haven't necessarily drawn it like that nicely. But in a perfect world, right, the distance from 0 is 3 units. 3 units. Okay, so we've represented the integer and its opposite on a number line. So if you were to try it, you're going to pause the video, see how you do. But for time's sake, I'm not going to pause because I know in real life you can pause the video. But I would 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, graph -2 and its opposite. So I would find -2, put a dot, right? Nice and big so you can see it. And then the same distance away from 0, but on the opposite side of 0 is at 2. So I have graphed -2 and 2, and I'm just circling them so you can see them there, right? I have graphed -2 and its opposite on a number line. So you will have to do this on Big Ideas, but what's nice about Big Ideas is you guys aren't going to have to draw these number lines. You'll just have to be able to look at the number line, plot the points, and call it good. But now at least you've had a little practice of drawing a number line and graphing them by hand. Okay, so let's look at a real life example here. And just think through this. So you may be given the task of writing an integer that represents each position. So let's say you're at an elevator in a building and you enter at the ground level. So some buildings, I'm in a parking garage and I enter at the 4th level or the 3rd level, or sometimes I enter 2 levels below ground level. It depends on what building and how you're accessing that building. But let's say this time around you enter at ground level. So what is the integer that represents that position? Well, that should be, hopefully you thought, 0. You go down 2 floors. What is the position of that? Well, down, right? We're looking for our keywords, -2. You go up 7 floors. Well, going up 7 floors would be +7. I'm just going to write 7. So now the follow-up question, though, is what floor are you now on? What floor are you now on? So most of you probably can figure it out without even thinking too much into it, but what's always helpful is to draw a diagram. So if I draw, let's say, a line here, and this is 0, this is the floor I entered on, right? So this was ground level. And I went down 1, 2 levels, right? I went down 2 levels first. So I went down 2 floors or levels. Yeah. Then I go up 7 floors from there. I probably should have made my arrow a little bit longer here. Let me go here. Okay, so I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? I go up 7 floors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, sorry. I miscounted. Good thing I always use a pencil. That's why I always tell you guys to use a pencil. So I went up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 flights total, right? I moved up 7 floors or 7 flights, however you want to say. This is a total I went up from being here 2 floors down. Now at ground level, or relative to ground level, I'm now at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5th floor. So 1st floor, 2nd floor, 3rd floor, 4th floor, 5th floor. So even though I went 7 floors up, from this stop, I'm only 5 floors above ground level. So I'm on the 5th floor of the building. And again, I'm pretty sure that most of you, without even having to draw a diagram, could figure that out. But it's nice to just kind of map it out and have our thinking written out on paper so we can think through this. So even though we moved 7 floors, we were 2 floors below ground level. So now we're at the 5th floor. So this is something that really, how integers play into our real life, that we don't even think about it. So the next time you maybe go to the doctor's, or you're going to the mall, or some other tall building with multiple floors, if you think about this, really we're living integers on a daily basis, and we don't even really think about it. All right, so again, this is something that you might encounter on your practice. Remember to rewind, rewatch as needed, and pause. I know that the notes are heavy, there's a lot of writing, but all of it is good practice. So you guys will have today and tomorrow, so Thursday and Friday, to finish up your practice with integers. For the big ideas practice, you do not have to write these practice problems on paper and record them. A whiteboard is fine because it goes pretty quick with the integers, so I don't need you to be bogged down with writing it down on paper. So doing that with the whiteboard, if you need it, is fine. So like I did earlier in the week, I'm going to give you kind of like a pre-practice to get warmed up with quizzes, and then you'll have your practice on big ideas. If you have questions, please email me. Some of you are doing a great job doing that, just trying to check in. And the week will be over before we know it. And I will see you soon on Monday. All right, take care.